Hiring a great CFO hinges on sound judgment, a well thought through interview process, and of course, asking the right questions. We've had customers come to us over the years to fix a problem where they hired the wrong person based predominantly on gut feel. In this quick summary today, I'll give you a list of competency-based interview questions that reveal leadership style, commercial judgment, the ability to drive change, the ability to implement controls, influence stakeholders, and to gauge if you're interviewing someone who is technologically savvy. I'm David from Lloyd, Sydney specialist in accounting and finance executive recruitment. Our team has over 200 years of combined experience and we fill more than 500 roles every year. So what are competency-based interview questions? These are actually my go-to type of interview questions as they provide really great insights. They're essentially questions which draw on a candidate's real prior experiences and act as a potential indicator of what they might do in the future. Typically, they can be split into two main categories: behavioural interview questions and technical interview questions. As the name suggests, behavioural focus on how an individual behaved in specific situations in the past, and that gives you a sense of aspects like motivation, stakeholder management, and tenacity. Whereas technical questions will focus more on experience with tasks, systems, and accounting knowledge. At their core, these are open questions. They can't be answered with a simple yes or no. They typically start with something along the lines of, "Can you tell me about a time when you... .. Before I share some examples, the first thing I want to recommend is to set the rules for using these questions. Firstly, don't just ask the question, tick it off, and then move on to the next one. Really listen. Did the candidate say I or we, i.e. were they owning the task or were they part of a team? Did the candidate give you an answer that demonstrated that they really knew what they were talking about, and were they articulate? Just because something features on someone's CV doesn't mean you can take their knowledge in that area as gospel. Secondly, ask for specific recent examples. Third, to spot a great answer, listen out for the STAR. STAR stands for situation, task, action, and results. So, situation, where the candidate provides context around what was happening. Task, the applicant should describe the task that was actually needing to be done. Action, what specific actions the candidate took. And result, what was the outcome. Fourth, listen to the answers, then ask follow-up questions and really probe. Delve into any of the specifics the candidate mentioned. This could be the actual role they played, the outcome that changed, or what they'd do differently next time around. Finally, score each answer consistently. Think about basing your score on clarity, evidence, impact, and alignment. You can use a simple 1 to 5 scale, and if you're interviewing as a panel, I'd advise you to put your heads together briefly between interviews while everything is fresh in your minds. Now, here's some example questions that separate good CFOs from great CFOs. A question to explore leadership and culture. You could ask, tell me about a time you reset a finance team's operating rhythm without losing people. Listen to the answer, and then you may want to probe into what changed in the first 60 days, what shifted by day 90, for example, and so on and so forth. To explore commercial judgment, you may ask, describe a situation where you traded margin for growth. Again, hear the answer, and then you may like to probe into questions like, what data did you rely on? What risk did you accept? What was the outcome? For change and transformation, you could ask, as CFO, walk me through a recent process transformation that you led. Follow-up questions here could include, what didn't work out? How did you course correct? What stuck? A question to explore controls versus pace could be, give me an example of a time when you tightened controls while protecting speed. Probing questions here could include, which metrics moved? How quickly? For stakeholder influence, you could ask, share a time when you won a non-finance audience over to a hard decision. Probing questions here could include, how did you frame it? What data made the difference? Or what resistance did you meet? A final example, to explore technology and insights, you could ask, as a CFO, tell me about a time you implemented dashboards or tools that significantly changed executive decision making. Again, probing questions here could include, how were they received? What obstacles did you have to overcome? What would you do differently next time? So why does this matter? The right questions and a consistent framework turn what can be a subjective process into an insightful, evidence-based decision. And for a critical hire like a CFO, that can be the difference between finding a leader who transforms your business and one who simply fills a seat. And finally, why you may want to consider working with a specialist recruiter. At Richard Lloyd, we go beyond job descriptions. We design structured interviewing guides, competency scorecards, and practical assessments that give you confidence in making the right hire. With over 500 finance and accounting placements each year in Sydney, we know exactly which questions to ask to ensure our clients find the right candidates who will thrive. To wrap up, here's a quick recap. Ask for recent specific examples, not theory. Score answers on clarity, evidence, impact, and alignment. Calibrate as a panel to stay consistent. And use the right competency-based questions to make impactful judgments that eliminate relying on your gut feel. If you'd like the full set of questions, you'll find it in the guide linked in this post. And if you're ready to run a Chief Financial Officer recruitment process, speak with us at Richard Lloyd to access Sydney's best off-market talent. You can reach us on our website, richardlloyd.com.au.